Hi everyone. This week we're going to take a look at Dr. Faustus, or the tragical history of Dr. Faustus by a really fascinating playwright named Christopher Marlowe. You'll read in your textbook, and if you do any research on him, he has a crazy reputation. Some say he was a spy, some say his death was orchestrated by other people. Some even make the claim, which I think is a little bit out there, that he actually wrote most of Shakespeare's stuff and that Shakespeare ended up having him killed. Now, these are all crazy rumors because, like a lot of these authors, we just don't have that much information about them. But what we do know of Christopher Marlowe was he came and blazed on like a meteor before finally passing away. And so we're going to read what I think is his most classic work, which is Dr. Faustus. Now, it's a play about the question of ambition. How much is too much? And Faustus tries to teach us, if we might borrow Sidney's term, that too much ambition can go too far. And so we're going to see that play out within this play. So a little bit about the structural dynamic of a play. First off, we kind of wanted what Sidney does, what Marlowe does differently than what we read in Shakespeare is he has a prologue and a chorus. And the chorus and the they kind of set markers for what you should be looking for in the play. You see the chorus show up in different places. They kind of are outside the play and they step in for just a moment to say, hey, wait a minute, you need to know what's going on. If you're familiar at any point with Romeo and Juliet, you see a prologue operating in that same way at the very beginning of that play. Two households, both alike in dignity, where they tell the story of the play before it actually happens to kind of press the audience to understand how much is this how is this supposed to be read? How is it supposed to be understood? Now, whether or not the playwrights are correct in that is something that's up for discussion, but just pay attention to those things. It's kind of a marker throughout the text of, hey, this chorus is helping me understand what the overall perspective is. And then you also see an A and B plot going on here. And this is also something that Shakespeare does, though he doesn't do it in Henry IV. Where you have the A plot, which is Faustus, but then you have the B plot, which is his group of servants. And these are constantly commenting together. Really, the B plot is commenting on the A plot. And so you see Faustus's servants doing a lot of the same things, except they look totally ridiculous doing it. And it's something that I think that is of interest to us because we might want to ask, what is Marlowe doing with that B plot? Is he pointing to how ridiculous Faustus is or how futile his attempts are or something else? So keep an eye on that, and that'll explain why you have those secondary characters doing similar things but with a different outcome and a different interpretation. So some of the topics that you're going to kind of be dealing with throughout this play it's a question of who holds the actual power. So Marlowe presents Faustus as someone who wants to have the power of magic, the power to summon demons, the power to do these things. Yet there are plenty of times when Faustus doesn't seem to have the power, where he might reveal, no, can't do that, or might understand, or Mephistopheles will just tell him no. And Mephistopheles will say, I'm not going to answer your question, or not answer it in the way that Faustus wants. And so you might think through someone with that much ambition, how foolish or how blind he might be to what his actual power is after he's given up so much, including his soul, to get this power. And that leads to this idea of predestination and free will. Now, this is a topic that continues to be a huge part of Christian theology, and you might see here names like Calvinism, Arminianism, and different denominations presenting in different ways. But the basic idea is that predestination holds that God elects people prior to their birth to come to salvation, and that free will ultimately will serve that role of predestination. Free will, or an argument that based on free will, would argue that it's up to the person themselves. And that leads to this question with Faustus in particular of what is his responsibility, and more importantly, can he actually repent? Now, he says a few times he gets right up to the edge of repenting, and then he walks back for whatever reason till the end when he can no longer repent. And the question is the play seems to think that he is, but if he is predestined to not be elect or to be one of the reprobate, then he can't actually, despite his desires to. And Marlowe is not, it's not clear on which line he might fall on this, and honestly, this is a bit of a murky topic of conversation, but I want you to explore a little bit what the play presents in terms of these overarching dominant narratives. Now, one of the things I mentioned to you about reading Sidney is be careful about reading your own interpretation into Marlowe's, or in Sidney's in that case, but in Marlowe's in this case. I understand that you might be very passionate about these ideas. That's great. But I want to hear how Marlowe is presenting these ideas. And you can't assume that Marlowe agrees with you here. So how is he wrestling with this idea within the text? And finally, what is particularly of interest to Faustus, as he brings it up a couple of times, is what is hell? Tell me about hell. Mephistopheles answers that in a very different way by saying, one, that everywhere that heaven is not is hell, that I'm in hell now, basically on earth, because I have tasted the joys of heaven. And hell's not a place. Hell is this constant torment in your own mind, so that earth itself would be hell for a demon. Now, it's very different than some of the traditional images, and here we have at Halloween time, of pitchforks and flames and things like that. But it is a more expanded view. I've heard hell referred to as, one Christian theologian, he says he doesn't think that hell has the actual fire, but that what is hell is actually far worse. And I wondered to see what Marlowe's presentation of what hell is. And the question for Faustus and for us is, do we take Mephistopheles serious? Or is he trying to sort of reel Faustus in to continue to keep his focus on his commitment to sell his soul? So it's a deep, deep text, and I think you'll enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Thank you.